In today's video, we'll try to understand what is SARFAESI Act and what all actions banks or financial institutions can take under SARFAESI Act. The SARFAESI Act was passed in December 2002 to help lending institutions, primarily banks, and financial institutions, cooperative banks in India to recover their dues quickly. The Act empowers banks and financial institutions to initiate recovery proceedings, to take possession of the mortgage properties, auction sale of those repossessed properties and recover their dues. However, the lenders have to follow a structured process laid out in the SARFAESI Act to initiate recovery proceedings. The banks and financial institutions have to keep the borrowers informed at every stage, borrowers and guarantors informed at every stage by way of sending physical copy of notices and through registered post acknowledgement due, or through public intimation by way of publishing the notices in newspapers and pasting notices, every notices on the mortgage property. Now, after completion of the issuance of the loan recall notices by the banks or the financial institutions, as a first step, a demand notice under section 13(2) is issued by the banks or financial institutions with a demand to pay the outstanding amounts within 60 days from the date of the receipt of the notice. If the borrowers ignore the notices or fail to respond to the demand notices and to pay the outstanding dues, then banks will initiate repossession proceedings by visiting the mortgage property and pasting a symbolic possession notice under section 13(4). Though this particular symbolic possession is not mandatory as per the SARFAESI Act, however, the banks and the financial institutions follow this practice. The notice is issued to inform the borrower and the general public at large that the said mortgage property is taken over symbolically by the bank or the financial institution, although the symbolic possession, as I said, it is not mandatory as per the Act. Now, whenever the possession is resisted by the borrower or guarantor thereafter, the authorized officer of the bank or financial institutions has to file an application under section 14 of the SARFAESI Act before the chief metropolitan magistrate or the district magistrate, depending upon the jurisdiction, under whose jurisdiction the property comes, seeking their help for acquisition of the mortgage property. Thereafter, under section 14 of the SARFAESI Act, the CMM or the district magistrate delivers the possession of the mortgage property to the bank's authorized officer. All the actions of the bank or financial institutions under SARFAESI Act has to be done by the authorized officer appointed by them. Randomly, no bank official or the financial institution official can do. A paper publication of the repossession of the mortgage property has to be done in at least 2 newspapers intimating the borrower and public at large regarding the property repossession status. As per the provisions of the section 13(6), any transfer thereafter of the secured asset after taking the possession thereof shall be construed as transfer had been made by the owner of such secured asset. The ownership gets transferred from the borrowers or guarantors to the lenders. Now, the banks and financial institution sells a secured property by way of public auction sale through a public intimation of the auction, such auction details such as property details, reserve price, auction date, time and place. However, the property can still be recouped or retained or recovered by the borrower before auction sale as per the provisions of the section 13(8) of the SARFAESI Act. Okay, if the dues of the lender or the bank or the financial institution together with all the costs, charges and expenses thereof are tendered to the lender or to the banks or the financial institutions at any time before the date fixed for sale or transfer, Once the amounts are repaid as per the provisions of the section 13(8) of the SARFAESI Act, the secured asset shall not be sold or transferred by the lenders or creditors. Now the borrowers, as per the SARFAESI Act, have the right to approach the debt recovery tribunal to challenge the banks or financial institutions, okay, under SARFAESI Act for seeking appropriate relief by making an application under section 17(1). If the borrower is dispossessed from the property which is not in accordance with the provisions of the SARFAESI Act. Now the borrower can approach the DRT and make an application under section 17(1) only after measures under section 13(4) have been taken by the banks or financial institutions. They cannot approach the debt recovery tribunal for any relief only on the basis of the section 13(2) notice. Now if DRT, debt recovery tribunal, after examining the facts of the cases and on the basis of the evidence produced by both the borrower and the lender, comes to a conclusion that the measures taken under section 13(4), if they come to under conclusion that the measures taken under section 13(4) are not as per the provisions of the SARFAESI Act, it may pass orders or declare that the action taken by the banks or the secured creditor is invalid and the possession has to be restored to the borrower. This is how the proceedings happen under SARFAESI Act. However, it is always advisable at any given stage of the SARFAESI Act that the borrower approaches the banks or the secured creditors or the financial institutions, gets into a negotiation discussion with them as in what will be the amount required or the dues that requires to be paid to hold the proceedings, and better he make the payment and and ensure that these proceedings are stopped. There is no point in trying to depend purely on the courts or on the DRTs to get over with the proceedings. You may probably get some time, maybe extension of time. Other than that, the possession or the auction sale proceedings or the liquidation of the asset and recovery of the dues of the banks or the financial institutions are not going to be stopped. So one way is, the first thing what I suggest is talk to your financial institution and try to understand what is the immediate payment that needs to be made for this account to come out of NPA and for the SARFAESI proceedings to be stopped, and please pay those amounts and come out of and ensure that the SARFAESI proceedings are being kept on hold by the banks or the financial institutions. And if it is a situation where the total amount needs to be repaid, you can talk to the financial institutions at every stage of the SARFAESI Act and try to seek maybe the outside assistance of the, if you do not want to retain the property, maybe outside assistance who may be interested in buying your property, a mortgage property, and try to sell the property and repay the total outstanding dues of the banks and financial institutions and ensure the securitization proceedings are stopped and you come out of the entire liquidation or the recovery proceedings neatly. That's it for now.